Eyes peeled, everyone. Welcome to the Full 10 Yards Fantasy Football Podcast.
Hello and welcome to the latest edition of the Full 10 Yards Fantasy Podcast. And exciting times for us. It is the first live stream fantasy podcast as well for the Full 10 Yards guys. So as you can see, it's my job for me. You can see us in the show. I don't need to live introduce. But those listening back, we have got myself, David. We have got Rob, Dave, and Adil. Rob, how are you doing?
Yeah, really good, mate. Good to be live and showing my ugly face, and to see everyone can see your tash, your Movember going on. I've been on about it for the last couple of weeks on the show. It's great to see it live.
Yeah, it has reduced down slightly now, so I'm going to let the beard catch up a little bit now, and hopefully readjust the balance slightly. Dave, how are you doing?
I'm thinking I should have had a shave as well myself before coming on here. The bum fluff extreme extraordinaire here. But no, I'm all good. Weird weekend. I'm looking forward to talking about it.
Yeah, definitely, and it's not over yet. Like usually, obviously, we're recording on the Monday where we've still got the Monday Night Football game to go. But of course, we had the Monday Night Football game last night between the Seahawks and the Eagles, and this week is still not over. But we will get more into that later. But first, I will welcome Adil to the show as well. Adil, how are you doing?
I'm doing faster. I'm fantastic.
Good. Yeah, good to have you back once again. So, yeah, week 12, it's not over. We have still got the Pittsburgh Steelers and the Baltimore Ravens to play. It is currently scheduled for Wednesday at 8:40 p.m. British time. So nice for us to have some midweek football. And do we think we have a game this week, Rob, between the Steelers and the Ravens? It's been pushed back ever since Thanksgiving last week, but do we finally get it played tomorrow?
Well, I think we'll find out, won't we? I saw a funny meme earlier which said, "Is Lamar Jackson healthy yet?" Maybe we won't play it yet. Then, no, I think we will get it. What we will get is another question. Obviously, Baltimore they've lost a lot of players, so there's no telling who's actually going to turn up. And for fantasy wise, I haven't even looked, so don't ask me who am I starting for tomorrow. I mean, that's part of last week anyway, isn't it? So yeah, good luck if you're relying on some of them players.
Yeah, I was going to say, hopefully you've taken all of those players out, because it's not going to be good to watch. And if you're relying on Lamar Jackson to come in and put a fantasy winning week, then I don't think it's going to end too well for you. But I did see something funny earlier, because tomorrow is the first time since 2012 that Americans have got the McRib. The McDonald's have got the McRib on the menu. And obviously the NFL and the McDonald's have parted ways. And this is the first NFL game on a Wednesday since 2012. So there's now a conspiracy theory that the NFL is purposefully scheduled a Wednesday game for the first time since the partnership has ceased to purposefully ruin McDonald's relaunch of the McRib to the menu. But that's quite the conspiracy theory and quite the forward planning from the NFL. I don't think that'll be the case. Yes, I'm not too convinced. So week 12, we have had a lot of action already. Like I say, all but one game, and it is not without injuries. So we will head into them first. So a few notable ones from the fantasy perspective. DJ Moore left the game late on in the fourth quarter with an ankle injury. It was a ball thrown behind him in the end zone, and he didn't quite get it. It would have helped the scoreline even more. But DJ Moore, it was thought to be a bit more serious than it looks to be. Carolina are obviously on a bye this week, headed into week 13, and Carolina are optimistic that he will be ready to go in week 14. Philip Lindsay, however, is set to miss some time. So the starting quarterback for Denver over the weekend, Philip Lindsay, he took a few wildcat snaps to start the game, but Philip Lindsay is set to miss about 1 to 3 weeks with a knee injury. It's not exactly clear what it is, but it could be an MCL sprain or a bruised bone there for Philip Lindsay, which surely means an uptake for work for Melvin Gordon, because Denver are going to have to do something different to what they did in the weekend just gone against the Saints. Obviously, understandable circumstances. Daniel Jones tweaked his hamstring. He left the game for Colt McCoy. A few snaps later, he did return to the game. He looked to be okay, but of course, he could not continue that game, and Colt McCoy finished for the Giants. But the Giants as well are optimistic that Daniel Jones could return to the starting lineup in Week 13. And then at the running back position as well, Dalvin Cook and Josh Jacobs. It seems to be a common theme this week, but they both suffered ankle injuries in their games as well. Dalvin Cook, when he went down, it's as if the world ended. He was thumping the floor. He was in considerable pain when he went down, and obviously he was helped off the field by the trainers as well. But he did actually return to that one, so fantasy owners will be optimistic that he does play in Week 13. I can't see a reason why he wouldn't. And Josh Jacobs, his status is unclear headed into Week 13 after also injuring his ankle. His stat line wasn't quite as impressive as Dalvin Cook's, only having the ball 7 times in total for that one for 27 yards. So top worries there. It's got to be Josh Jacobs, surely, Dave.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the worry in general for the Raiders offense as a whole.
Yeah.
But something wasn't right with the Raiders on Sunday. Jacobs, it could be a big issue for them going forward, especially with them trying to make the playoffs in real life. But fantasy-wise, this is crunch time for your playoffs. If you're on the playoff bubble, you need your RB1, which is what Jacobs would have been drafted as for your team. You need him going because otherwise you could be in deep trouble.
Yeah, you definitely do. We've seen him get over 30 carries at some points this season. So for him to get 7, and he's not the most prolific pass catcher anyway in that Raiders offense. So yeah, it's really worrying times for fantasy owners and players. But yeah, we all called the Raiders to win that one, and we have got egg on our faces on the Friday podcast. I don't think we could have seen that one. And the team that beat the Chiefs a few weeks ago fell 43-6 to the Raiders. To the Falcons. It was quite an embarrassment. But Adil, any other top fantasy concerns there? I'd say Philip Lindsay, but he's not exactly been prolific in the fantasy world. DJ Moore's probably your next one up that you're most worried about.
Yeah, he's a player which has performed reasonably well in the last few weeks, but it's just unfortunately he's actually managed to get himself dinged up.
Yeah, and there is the bye this week, which of course will help his status headed into Week 14. And I just still can't get my head around the fact that we've had a full slate of Week 12 games, but then we're going back into the bye situation in Week 13. It's totally bizarre from a fantasy perspective to be managing byes at this stage of the season when the fantasy playoffs, some leagues start this weekend. It's really difficult for managers to manage, and I'm not liking it at all. But hopefully we can return back to some kind of normality next year. So they are your key Week 12 fantasy injuries, and we will now head into our MVPs for the weekend. So Rob, would you like to take it away first? Who was your fantasy MVP for Week 12?
You did that on purpose, just so I was having a drink.
it's in the anti-clockwise rotation.
Yeah, all right. My fantasy MVP this week, and obviously there's some glaring obvious ones, but I'm going to sort of go down the route of fairly obvious, and that's running back for the Washington football team. Glad I got that right live on air. Antonio Gibson, of course, 115 yards rushing, 3 touchdowns. You know, this kid has just been superb this year, a shining light in that measly division. I'm not even going to say team, it's just division. He's been fantastic to watch week in, week out, getting it done for fantasy owners as well. And this week, again, like I said, over 100 yards again, multiple touchdowns again. This kid was picked up at the mid sort of late rounds. He was available on waivers after the draft. If you picked him up, rejoice. You've done well. You're probably doing well in your leagues. So, Antonio Gibson, fantastic performance on against the Cowboys. So, well done.
Yeah, and it's Gibson and Robinson have probably been the best two running backs out of this draft class. And obviously it was tipped to be a very good draft class with the likes of Akers going in the top round, Swift, all those kind of players going to those teams towards the top. And they've not come into fruition. Clyde Edwards-Helaire being another one. And it's Gibson and Robinson. Robinson obviously undrafted. The guys that have come in and stolen the show, particularly from the fantasy perspective, and Gibson this week as well. And yeah, you pair Gibson with McKissick, who's that fantastic PPR option as well, and you've got a nice potent little backfield there in Washington.
Yeah, and I mean they're short of a quarterback, aren't they? Let's be honest. I mean, Alex Smith, for all he's been through, it's so good to see him on the field. But with let's call a spade. That division, there's not one starting quarterback now, I think, and now Danny Dimes is down. Carson Wentz is if Jalen Hurts gets some more time going forward. And Alex Smith is saying, so Alex Smith is what, the third string this year for Washington? Yeah. Get a quarterback in there who's got a bit of zip about him. Terry McLaurin's a fantastic weapon. I mean, if you watch any of the game against the Cowboys, he looked good. I mean, he was hyper targeted. Well, say 7 receptions he got. I don't know what targets he got, but that team has got a good fundamental offense, and they can build with these guys now. J.D. McKissick has come from having sort of bit part roles all over the league to finally finding a home where he's, like you said, been productive, especially in PPR circles. But Gibson, this is the guy that you now build the team around. It's the same with James Robinson in Jacksonville. And you get that from time to time. We had it with Alvin Kamara. We had it with Kareem Hunt. These were players that you wasn't expecting from a fantasy perspective. You weren't expecting to blow up as quickly as they did. They have, and it's going to happen next year. It's going to happen the year after. But for now, you just got to rejoice. Hopefully, you listened to Mike, the fantasy hitman, right? Because he was telling you to go grab Antonio Gibson in the preseason. Hopefully, you did, because now you're being rewarded for that. And I should imagine there's going to be a lot of playoff teams with Antonio Gibson on their roster.
Doesn't it feel like such a long time since Darius Geis was on that team?
Yeah. Who?
Yeah, exactly. Just that off season that organization had, and there's so many things that went wrong, and finally something went right for them in getting the name changed, and that's kind of symbolic, really. Like it was a turning point. You've got Alex Smith back. You've got the growth there. You've got these two young running backs in the backfield, and they could easily make the playoffs. But that's
the scary thing about that division, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
An additional thing is that their defense is incredibly good. Their defensive line is just so strong.
I've been saying for months, and I've been slated in fantasy groups, and people watching now will say, "Oh yeah, I know," because I said their front seven is incredible. I would, if you take your mind back to the draft, before the draft, and I was saying, I think on the college show, that I don't think Washington were going to get Chase Young because they didn't need him, because they had like some Montez Sweat and Jonathan Allen and Daron Payne. They've got a quality 7, but they got Chase Young as well to add to that group, and they are going to be phenomenal in a couple of years' time. So it's a team to be excited by. Genuinely, they're 4-7 in the worst division in the NFL. It's hard to get excited about Washington, but there is snippets, and Antonio Gibson, circling back to him, is one of the reasons for that.
And we look at Riverboat Ron, like the job that he's done in Carolina over the years is a really good job there. And obviously he's gone to Washington now, and his focus will have not been 100% on this football team for the first half of the season. Like what this guy has gone through to be as present as he has been at games and so far this season is miraculous. And hopefully now, obviously he's rang that bell, he's got the all clear, and hopefully now he can solely concentrate on this football team and get them into a better place there. But Antonio Gibson, bow to him. Fantastic performance in week 12. Dave, we head over to you. Who was your fantasy MVP for the weekend?
I was hyping this guy up, or the team in general, on the Friday show, and it's Jarvis Landry for the Browns, because I wanted them to go to Jacksonville and just smack them around and just bully them and just put up a big score. It didn't quite work out that way. Mike Glennon nearly pulled Jacksonville into overtime. But Jarvis Landry had himself a great day. 8 catches, 143 yards, and his first touchdown of the year. His first one. So in that first, the 143 yards he got was only the second time this year that he went above 65 yards in a game. So if you've held on to Jarvis Landry all this time, or maybe you listened to the Friday show and thought, yeah, Jarvis Landry, pick him up on waivers. Fair play to you, because he hasn't done it this year. The Browns haven't done it on offense this year. But finally, they get some good weather, some nice warm weather, and Jarvis just tore it up. It was brilliant to watch.
Yeah, and we said as soon as OBJ went out, oh, Jarvis Landry is going to be this target hog and he's going to get all these receptions. But it's the weather that they've had to play in over the last few weeks. He's not had that opportunity. The weather that they've played in, and Baker's stats have been reflected in that as well. And Cleveland obviously want to run the football first. But we've been talking about Donovan Peoples-Jones. We're talking about Rashard Higgins. Hodge has come into the scene lately. And yeah, Landry's just put his, look, come on, guys. I am the wide receiver one in this offense. And he's come in and he's put up a good performance there, which is, I don't know if we're going to talk about in the waiver section later. A lot of leagues, he will have been dropped. So it's perhaps not somebody that is going to get discussed in waiver articles and waiver segments of podcasts and stuff this week, because he is almost expected that he's been rostered. I don't know what his ownership percentage is off the top of my head, but it's going to be well worth a look in your league just to see if Jarvis Landry is there, because
He is owned in 76.5% of ESPN.
That's the NFL league. It's 81.7, surprisingly. So maybe he's just a bench rider at the moment in your league. But yeah, playoffs around the corner, and the Browns' schedule at Titans, host the Ravens, at Giants, at Jets. You know, the Ravens game tricky, but if you go into your championship game and you have Jarvis Landry going against the Jets in week 16. Yes.
Yes. Yeah, that will be a good one to see. And Adil, just before we get to you, we have got Ross Sterling. He has commented to say that the fantasy MVP for the week is Tyreek Hill. I'm trying to display it, Ross. I'm trying to display it. There we go. As if by magic. Fantasy MVP for the week is Tyreek Hill. And what a game he had, but what a first quarter. Like 200 receiving yards in that first quarter. And when him and Mahomes click, it is a joy to watch. You get these comments afterwards from him. Am I a wide receiver one? Yeah. Am I a wide receiver one? And yeah, he's not as tall as your standard wide receiver one, your typical X receiver who's going to go up and catch the football. But some of the catches that he makes, and obviously his ability to run after the catch, is absolutely incredible. And the stat lines that he is putting up, Tyreek Hill, absolutely phenomenal. And I believe it was the 7th highest skill position PPR score of all time in fantasy from Tyreek Hill in that one.
Highest wide receiver score since 2000 PPR.
Yeah. Crazy. So it's been a long time, and since
if you tweet at AJ Moore 21, he will tell you a story that someone in his home league decided to start the aforementioned Broncos quarterback instead of Tyreek Hill this week. Well done, sir.
That's my MVP.
Same in my home league. I tweeted out about the same thing happened in my home league, and I'm currently on 140 likes on it. The about 25-30 comments on it. That tweet. I went to bed with like 6 or 7 likes, woke up, was like, whoa, that went off. And I've actually been blocked by the guy in my home league on Twitter from who has done that. I'm not a very popular person at all, but a couple of examples there where Kendall Hinton was in for Tyreek Hill.
So in the Dynasty League that myself and Rob are in, I have Tyreek, but I'm going to lose. And I put up
what happens?
Pretty big number as well, but it's just the other guy put up even more.
Well, I'll tell you one thing. One person in the full 10 yards isn't losing this week because he played me and he had Tyreek Hill, and that is our fearless leader, Tim. So there you go, Tim. You wanted the mention for that. Well done. You absolutely nailed it this week. Over 200 points in our redraft league. So Well played.
Well done. You've got to let Tim win, haven't you, Rob? That's the
Rules.
Man win.
exactly. And continuing the circle around, Adil, who was your fantasy MVP for week 12?
So my fantasy MVP was Derrick Henry. Now, there are people who are actually considering him for MVP over the overall league, and games like that give credence to it. Now, unfortunately for me as a Colts fan, Rob as a Colts fan, he completely stomped all over our
No good.
semi-injured Dave. So I had a look at a stat from the game with DeForest Buckner, who was out for the game. The rushing yards per rush was normally 3 yards. Without him, 5. And he rushed for 5.8 yards per rush. 20 rushes, 115 yards, and 3 touchdowns. It's pretty brutal.
I got so mad watching that. So mad. I was sitting on my couch. My mum and dad were around and I was watching Red Zone. And for the third time, Derrick Henry went straight through the middle. And I just got up and shouted at the TV. And I'm like, very sorry. But no, not having it. It's obvious what they were going to do. It was so obvious. And we just couldn't stop it. DeForest Buckner has been a godsend for us this year. Without him, we really struggled.
And then when they didn't go to him, Tannehill went on a...
That was a beautiful touchdown. That was like you could see the whole Conts defensive. Sorry, yeah, obviously not for you two, but I could have scored that touchdown from a rushing perspective. Like it would literally walk in and that's the effect that Derrick Henry has on you, and that's why that Tannehill can use the play action so effectively is because you are so scared of what Derrick Henry can do from that running back position, and you concentrate your whole defense on stopping him, and that opens up the read option, the play action for Tannehill to do what he wants basically. And Tannehill, it wasn't a prolific day for him through the air. It does lead me nicely into my fantasy MVP for the week, which is AJ Brown on the same team. And like I say, that it wasn't even a prolific day for Ryan Tannehill through the air. He only threw the ball 22 times and only completed 13 of those. But that was still enough for AJ Brown to rack up 25.8 PPR fantasy points. Now, 6 of those did come on a kickoff return touchdown. He was on the hands team and he was able to take a kickoff return back to the house. But this is a guy that doesn't get talked about as being a fantasy wide receiver 1. And I think particularly in PPR leagues, it's because he is too reliant on the big play. And he's not had a single game this year where he's had double-digit targets, which if Ryan Tannehill's throwing the ball 22 times and the Titans are scoring 45 points, it's completely understandable as to why he's not ever getting double-digit targets. But he still puts up the numbers. Like the guy is wide receiver 10. If he's missed a few games earlier on in the season, but if you take the points per game averages, he's wide receiver 10 in PPR leagues and wide receiver 5 in standard leagues. This guy puts up a lot of fantasy points, and he will have those duff games for you. He will have those games where he doesn't get it done and he has a couple of points, and he's had a few drops of recent weeks. The Packers game a couple of weeks ago, there was he dropped a big touchdown there, and he does get slated for that. But then you look at the effort that he put in for that touchdown against the Ravens a couple of weeks ago, where he dragged 4 or 5 players from the 5-yard line into the end zone all by himself. It's that kind of effort that is rewarding fantasy players. And AJ Brown is a very unsung hero when it comes to the world of fantasy football. And that's why I wanted to give him my MVP this week, because some leagues wouldn't have classed his kickoff return touchdown as a touchdown, and he would have finished on just shy of 20 fantasy points. But for those that did, it was just shy of 26, finishing as the wide receiver 7 on the week. And in a very dominant Titans performance, well, it sets up the division nicely for the run-in. But AJ Brown, you are my fantasy MVP for week 12. Do apologise for all of the Titans love, Rob and Adil. But Dave, what have you got to say on that?
I was just going to say, I hyped myself up saying that I said Jarvis Landry is my start, not start of the game, but a big guy to look for in the Browns-Jags game, my sit of the game on the Week 12 preview for the Titans-Colts game was A.J. Brown. and I quote, "A fortnight ago, he was held to a catch for 21 yards against the Colts. I'm not sure I'd like him to do much better."
I think
that's a good job we're not paid.
Oh, dear.
When you look at his stats since week 5, he'd only failed to break 10 points once. And that's when we had a full defense available to us. When looking at the injury reports and when you saw how banged up the key players for the Colts were, you can see how that came to fruition.
Man, it's
That's
annoying.
hindsight.
That was a must-win game for us, I think. Well, it was.
Yeah, it was
disappointing. Considering we 2 weeks ago we were so much better. That was annoying. That was an annoying loss. Don't mind losing when you're the worst team, and we were. But when it's against a divisional rival in a must-win game, and it's a momentum killer. Momentum killer.
Yeah, but one win behind, you're 1-1 in the head-to-head. So
we're fine. We faced Houston twice, and they've just lost Will Fuller.
Oh, yeah. I'm sure we'll come on
QT to the rescue.
Yeah, exactly. Like,
I had to laugh because I was listening to the fantasy footballers earlier, and Andy Holloway said, without Will Fuller, that team is in trouble. This is obviously before the news broke. And I went, yeah, we face him twice in the next few weeks.
Yeah, Will Fuller. Yeah, we'll talk about him because he does set up my waiver pick nicely, which
I apologize. I've stepped in.
But heck, let's roll anyway. So time for the honourable mentions. So Rob, take it away. Who is the guy that nearly got the MVP status but was picked at the post?
That would be DK Big Calves, DK Metcalf from the Seattle Seahawks. Unbelievable talent, isn't he? He's been phenomenal this year. And again, was it Sunday night, Monday night? I can't remember. I've lost all days of the week. 177 yards receiving. Ouch! That's good. Thoroughly enjoying watching him this year. He's everything that he's promised to be when he came into the league, looking like that absolute unit with no top on with Pete Carroll. We thought this is going to be a bear in this offense, and absolutely. And I was speaking to a lad from work today when we was working, saying how well that offense works because you've got Tyler Lockett, the speed guy on one side, you've got DK Metcalf, the absolute unit on the other side. It's hard to tell which one's going to have the better week, but quite often, I mean, not in this case because Tyler Lockett didn't have a great week this week, but quite often they both have good weeks because they're both usable. And this is why Russell Wilson's having such success now because he's got two fantastic options, and DK Metcalf is just ticking all the boxes right now. And I don't know if you saw his post-match interview that he got quote pissed off. I know we can't beep anything out. Sorry if that's a swear word.
It's after the watershed.
But it's he was peed off because I think Jim Schwartz from the Eagles said that he's good but not quite Megatron, and I think that really struck a chord with DK. Not because DK wants to be Megatron, DK wants to be his own guy, and he made that fairly certain. And I won't want to argue with him. I mean, you be your own guy. But no, I mean seriously, he's doing some great things, and this week was no exception. I mean, unfortunately, no touchdown. It doesn't matter though. He's still getting you 27 PPR points.
Yeah, and Darius Slay. If anyone has found him in DK Metcalf's pocket, then please.
Darius Slade.
He's like this top cornerback in the league, and DK Metcalf. It's like he put the game onto easy mode last night and was absolutely phenomenal. Yeah. And a good friend of the show, Chris Robin, tweeted out earlier. Darius Slay kicked up that stink in Detroit, saying, "I don't want to be there. The team's going nowhere, etc., etc." Wound up in Philadelphia. And what team would you rather be on right now? A Detroit team who've just got rid of Patricia Quinn, or would you rather be on Eagles with them in the state that they were last night? It's
in the playoff hunt still.
In the playoff, yeah, quite. Like Darius Slay could well be playing playoff football.
Slay was quite vocal about the Patricia stuff. Did you see that as well on Twitter?
No, I missed that.
He put something like, "Oh, I thought I was the problem with Detroit." So a backhanded comment, but apparently there's been loads of players, like former Detroit players and current Detroit players who have been quite vocal, people should say, on the social media.
And you don't very often get that, because there is that certain level of respect for the coaching staff. And even if you don't agree with the coaching staff, you don't get on, you do keep it all behind closed doors and you don't go public with it. So for as many players that have come out to have said about Patricia, then it doesn't look good.
I think it speaks volumes about Matt Patricia. Terrible coach, and I think it's shining through. And obviously, all the players and former players and current players think the same. So I don't know. I don't know the guy. I'm not going to judge him, but certainly by what we've heard of the last couple of days on the social medias would indicate that not particularly the best coach.
No, I wouldn't agree. Well, sorry, I would agree with that. Dave, who have you got as your honourable mention for the week?
So this one's a bit left field. He was never in contention to be my MVP, but this is almost like a season-long honourable mention. It's to Younghoe Koo. I mean, the guy's just been battering the ball all season long, and this time, 21 points. I mean, it's not beyond the realms that you started Tyreek Hill, Antonio Gibson, and Younghoe Koo in your fantasy teams. And if you have, that's 100 points for free. Just so good. He averages over 10 points a game, this guy. He's by far and away the best kicker fantasy-wise in the league. And I'm loving it. I mean, even as a Saints fan, I resent cheering on a Falcons player at any time of the year, especially with the rematch in the Georgia Dome coming this weekend. But props to the guy, 21 points for a kicker. And it's not even like it was a Brandon McManus style high-scoring game for Denver where he's the only guy that scored. Atlanta put up 43 points, and Younghoe Koo scores 21 fantasy points. Fantastic.
Yeah, I've loved him all season. I've been really high on the Koo train, and he's missed a game through injury. He did pick up a knock. He was wearing a knee brace at some point in that game because he did get injured, but no, he battles on, and a fantastic fantasy performance from them. And he outscored so many high-profile running backs and wide receivers this week. Obviously, we'll cover the busts a little bit later, but when you're outscoring the likes of Alvin Kamara and Kareem Hunt put together, that's quite the fantasy performance.
He's a playoff saver for you at the moment because of all these RB1s that aren't performing, and we had some weird quarterback scores this weekend. If you've had Younghoe Koo in your team, then that could save your season in a way.
Providing you have kickers in your league.
Well, that's true. And a shout out to our friends. Kickers always matter. Kickers matter. On the NFL Fantasy website, he's only rostered on 83.9% of teams, which seems staggering to me.
But does that count the leagues where is the 17% leagues that don't have a kicker, or does it work that out?
No, I think it works it out, and it's also he's only 83% owned on ESPN leagues as well, which is bizarre.
Yeah. Waiver wire.
Yeah, we'll make an exception to the rule for Jarvis Landry and Younghoe Koo, even though they're over the 50% threshold that we tend to work to. Yeah. They are both on the waiver wire plugs this week, which we'll get to a little bit later on. So, Adil, who was your honourable mention for week 12?
My honourable mention was Robinson. So the Chicago Bears is a dumpster fire at the moment. They've gone from 5-1 to 5-6. Now, in this latest week, in half-point PPR, he got 23 points, which was the only time that he's done that in the season is the week 3. So the return of Mitch Trubisky has been perfect for him. And to be honest, there aren't many other players on that offense that can actually do much. David Montgomery did something for once, but outside of that, the wide receivers, he's going to be a peppered target constantly. So he deserves to be mentioned.
Yeah, imagine how good Allen Robinson could have been in his career if he'd had a quarterback, and not just a good quarterback, but a quarterback. And he finally gets shot of Blake Bortles, and he goes straight to Mitch Trubisky. Like the poor guy, like the talent that he has got. Yeah, with Nick Foles coming in and back to Mitch Trubisky. Like, please, someone save Allen Robinson and get him a decent quarterback, because what he could do with a decent quarterback it's not worth thinking about. And this is a guy he's had a torn ACL. He's come off big injury, and he's still balling out there. And he's had his tiffs with Chicago throughout the season, and he had that week where he removed all the mention from his social media and all that kind of stuff as well. So he could get franchise tagged at the end of the season. We just don't know what the future holds for Allen Robinson. But for a fantasy sake, please free him. Let's let him go to a decent team. And he goes into that like top 3 round conversation if he gets a half decent quarterback. Like, that's how good the guy is, in my opinion. I know he's unproven from a fantasy perspective with that kind of caliber of a quarterback, but yeah, absolutely love the guy. Absolutely love the guy, and he's got a nice few games coming up as well. I know he's got Jared Alexander in week 16, which isn't great for fantasy, but yeah, he's got a nice few weeks coming up. Or is it week 17?
Week 17, yeah.
Okay.
If he plays like that with a quarterback who's not that great, by logic, he should be a lot better with a better quarterback.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely think so. So, free Allen Robinson. Let's start the petition. Let's get him out of Chicago. Or get a decent quarterback into Chicago. Like you say, they are very quickly climbing up that draft boards in April. And obviously, they're not going to get a top 1 pick, because that will be the New York Jets. But they could do something. We just don't know at this moment in time. So we head on to mine, and this is a guy who played his first football since week 4 this week, and that is Austin Eckler. And even though it wasn't the most productive day on the ground for him, he only had 14 carries for 44 yards. Some of that was because he had just the stupidest goal line carries that I've ever seen. That play towards the end of the game where the Chargers are trying to get back 2 scores. They're trying to get it, and they run with the clock ticking. It was probably the dumbest play call I've ever seen, until the next play call where they tried a quarterback sneak with Herbert, and the whole offensive line was in pass protection. Yikes. Just 2 horrendous play calls there for Los Angeles. And at one point, I thought that the Bills were going to do a Chargers. So the Bills went up early in this one, and the Chargers brought this one a lot of the way back. And I thought that the Bills were going to do a Chargers, but the Bills did run out eventual 27-17 winners. And Austin Eckler in this game had 16 targets. Now, there was the conversation at the start of the season certainly Tyrod Taylor, he's never used his running backs in the same way that Phillip Rivers did. So Austin Eckler's shares were hampered because he wasn't getting those targets. But Herbert's come in now, and he's thrown the ball 16 times to him. 11 receptions, 85 yards. He hasn't had a touchdown this week. He's only had the 1 touchdown on the season, but still a 23.9 PPR fantasy point day for Austin Eckler, running back 8 on the week. And this was his first game back. A lot of people were saying that, he's not going to get all the touches. He's going to be injured. And he only got 14 out of the 24 carries. But when Melvin Gordon was there, he was never the guy that was getting 20, 25 carries a game. He was always that secondary piece, but he relies on that higher yards per carry, those receptions, those bigger plays. So Austin Eckler, I think as soon as he settles back into this offense, is going to look fantastic. And I didn't see anything that concerned me from an injury perspective. The only thing that did concern me was his goal line usage, but that's on the play call, and that's not on Austin Eckler. It's a little bit of a mixed bag for him heading into the last few weeks of the season. He's got New England next week, then it's Atlanta, Las Vegas, and Denver. Atlanta, they do tend to concede more points to the fantasy running back through the air than on the ground, which isn't too bad a thing for Austin Eckler. So it could be a lot worse for him. But I'm really excited to see him in this offense throughout the rest of the season and moving forwards. That particularly those final couple of play calls for the Chargers. The Chargers have got to be considering moving on from Anthony Lynn now. It's just season after season where they're nearly there, but they're still ending up with these high picks. How long do we think he's got left there, Anthony Lynn?
I don't know, but if that last sort of couple of play calls got anything to do with it, then not long.
Yeah,
brutal, absolutely brutal.
you say get Alan Robinson a quarterback, get the Chargers offensive coach, because the clock management, the play calling, oh god,
it's a shame because he's a lovely bloke. I mean, we saw it on
Hard Knocks.
Hard Knocks. What a genuinely nice guy he is, but coaching wise, man, he's got a lot to answer for. Because I mean, that Chargers team. I mean, I know they're missing Derwin James. I know they're missing a few other pieces, key pieces, but they should be better than what they're doing.
They should be aiming for a playoff spot. They should be in the hunt for a playoff spot right
Definitely.
now. I know. Sorry, go on.
I know they're in a tough division, but they still should be on the edge of it. They shouldn't be where they are now.
I mean, the one-score losses that they've had this season, it's so Chargers that it's going beyond Chargers because they had this thing of just having these horrific misfortunes, and yet they still they don't snap out of it, and it stops becoming a so-called curse, and then you just have to start looking at coaching, and that's really what it's getting down to now.
Yeah,
it's just bad coaching.
Yeah. You're right, and it is. Go on, Adil.
It seems systemic. Last season, they had the same problem.
Yeah.
They've got the quarterback now. They've got the running back. They've got a wide receiver core. They've got a defense. Why is this team not clicking? It has to be the coaching. Has to be. Love to hear from Lee Wakefield. Come and tell us why the Chargers are failing right now.
But a little bit off topic here, but Joey Bosa, we talked about how good the defense is, and Joey Bosa had a fantastic game in this one. Eight total tackles, 3 sacks, a pass defense, and a fumble recovery as well. Yeah. And it's been his brother Nick, his younger brother, who has stolen the headlines over the past couple of years. And I don't want to say we've forgotten about Joey Bosa, because obviously he's still a fantastic talent, but he's been someone that has dealt with a few injuries. But yeah, this game he was phenomenal as well. And when you've got a player on the defensive side of the ball who is giving you that kind of production against a quarterback like Josh Allen, who's nifty in the pocket, he's not gonna get sacked easily. But then for your offense to do what it's doing, and Herbert, he's had a phenomenal rookie season, but please just get into decent coaching. Please. It
was off character for him, actually. Justin Herbert. He'd be absolutely brilliant. Loved watching him. Absolutely loved watching him. But it was very off colour this week, which was a shame.
It's the hair.
Well, it is.
Or lack thereof. Yeah, he's lost all of his powers in cutting his hair. Okay, and we head over to the busts for the show. So these are the players that have not done particularly well. These are the players that speaking of hair, we've been pulling our hair out over. So, Rob, do you want to take it away with who was your biggest bust of the week?
I wasn't a massive fan of what Cooper Kupp did this week. He had a good week a couple of weeks ago. Was looking forward to him having a good game. The Rams didn't. Goff was terrible. Kupp was terrible. Disappointing was probably the word I'd put on it there. I'm trying to babble a minute because I haven't got the box score up. So hang on, give me a second. Rams, here we go. Against your 49ers, David, you must have been happy.
Oh, what a win that is!
Very good win. I mean, the Rams are a tough team. I mean, I know they're not the best team, but the 7-3 Rams, now 7-4. I mean, they're not to be argued with. They're hard to break down. They've got obviously a very good defense. I'm still babbling because I still haven't got it up. Here we go, Rams.
What I will say is though, Dave, you said that the 49ers playoff dreams were over. Cardinals lost, Rams lost, 49ers, they're creeping into that title race.
Do you know what? I'm really scared that the 49ers grab the 7 seed, the Saints end up as the 2 seed, and the playoff matchup that I was really worried about, and maybe Kittle gets healthy as well, and everything just comes crashing down in New Orleans yet again in the playoffs.
I will be going to Friday's episode, and I will be making an audio soundbite of that exact moment, and that I'll be sending that over to Rob to include in the intro and outro for the show. So. Rob, was that enough stalling for you?
Yes, thank you. Yeah, Cooper Kupp. Look, he's been up and down this year, and I just think that after, like I said, he had a really good week a couple of weeks ago, and I thought, oh, here we go. He's gonna get back on the horse here, and he's gonna start producing for fantasy owners again. But again, he just hit a dip, and I don't know whether it's him. I don't know whether it's Goff. I mean, I know Goff didn't look good at all. He was woeful, but 2 receptions, 41 yards, great average. Not good though. So for that reason, David, he is my bust.
I think it's Goff.
Probably.
And I also think it's a bit of the Niners as well. They have something over the Rams. Because he had, I think it was 11 yards against the Niners in the first game this year. I think Robert Saleh knows how to play Sean McVay.
Yeah,
Goff was terrible.
Yeah, and it's quite a few in a row. I want to say 7, but that might be completely over-egging it that we've got in a row over the Rams now. And it's funny because the Rams have dominated the Seahawks for the last few years, and it's such a weird division from that perspective. But we've done really well against the Rams over the last few years, and Cooper Kupp twice now. We've kept him to low fantasy points. So go Niners. Hashtag FTTB. the worst Twitter hashtag, by the way, but we'll skirt over that. Dave, who've you got?
Oh, now, if you would say to me on Sunday morning that the following quarterbacks, Brandon Allen, Colt McCoy, and Nathan Peterman,
elite,
would outscore Derek Carr, I would disown you. I would cut you out of my life forever. But that's what happened. Nathan Peterman coming in and throwing 25 passing yards in relief of Derek Carr, outscored him. Derek Carr scored 0.6 fantasy points this week as he threw 215 yards, 1 interception, and 3 fumbles lost. 3! I know I've been a bit Raiders heavy with the chat here, or the Raiders Falcons heavy, but this is one of the strangest games I've seen all season.
Don't be disrespected. Don't be disrespecting Bartram Trail High School's favourite quarterback of all time, Nathan Peterman. Legend that he is, coming in and relieving Derek.
The only quarterbacks that scored fewer fantasy points than Derek Carr were Kendall Hinton, who isn't a quarterback, Logan Woodside, who I'd never heard of until I was doing this research. He's the Titans' backup QB. Matt Sharp, who came in and just nailed the game out. And Jalen Hurts, who I know he was going to get more usage, but is still a gadget player for the Eagles in the same vein as Taysom Hill. But what a weird game for Derek Carr. And this is, again, the sort of thing I've banged on about it a lot in the last 45 minutes, but this is where you win and you get into the playoffs or you don't get into the playoffs. And I was certain that Derek Carr was a slam dunk against the Falcons. I thought Aguilar, Ruggs, Carr were just going to destroy them because the Falcons give up the most or second most fantasy points to QBs. Not anymore because it's the Seahawks. Because the Falcons limited, it was a combined effort of 2.5 fantasy points from Peterman Carr. A double act coming to your town soon.
I was one that picked it.
What a turnaround in Atlanta that Raheem Morris has done, and he is a Todd Gurley touchdown away from being 5-1 there since he took over. And that defense put up 28 fantasy points themselves. Like, it's gone from being a laughingstock and like the surefire to actually looking really good. And Dan Quinn, they couldn't have got rid of him. Well, it was perhaps a little bit too late. They might have done better if they got rid of him sooner. But yeah, Raheem Morris has come in. He's done a tremendous job there. 4-2, but 5-1 if Todd Gurley hadn't have scored that touchdown. And I suppose as a Saints fan, Dave, you've got to be worried going into next year about if Atlanta can keep a few pieces, add a few more in the different positions that they can be contenders in what could Carolina. I don't think they'll be far behind next season either. It'll be a very tough division next year.
I feel like the NFC South next year will go one of two ways. It will be an NFC West style, wow, every team could win the division. I know Cardinals they were kind of a sleeper hit this year, but not beyond the realms that every team could win a division. Or it could be an NFC East style of game where every team could win a division, but don't you dare deserve to get into the playoffs in a wildcard spot, because the Saints are likely without Breeze and massive cap issues as well. I think as it stands, they're going to be $93 million over the cap going into next year. The Panthers will get better. Whether Teddy is the starting quarterback, I assume he would be, but we don't know what off-season moves Carolina might make. The Falcons, I thought they were going to go full rebuild, but fair play to them. They're playing for Raheem Morris. And then the Bucks, again, could be a total mystery. We could get Brady walking through the division like it looked like he was going to do at one point, early weeks of the season, despite that Saints loss. Or Brady could go the way of 2013 Peyton, or 2014 Peyton Manning, or arguably 2020 at stages Drew Brees, where he just falls off a cliff. It's going to be a fascinating division next season, no matter what. One final point on Derek Carr, and then I'll close the book on him. They've got the Jets next week. Don't start him. Just start him, because it's the Jets.
The Dave double dip.
I'm going back in on Derek. Don't let me down.
The most crucial part of the season.
Yeah. I'm just throwing Derek Carr out there.
Adil, we go over to you. Who is your bust of the week?
My bust of the week is Alvin Kamara. So his compadre in the running back core tore it up. He did not. So if you bring up the box score, 11 rushes for 54 yards, 2 targets, 1 reception for -2. I started him because you're going to start him every week.
You have to.
You have to, but
first round draft pick, you've got to start him every single week. But his lack of he's not been a prolific rusher all season, and his lack of targets from Taysom Hill in the last 2 weeks has been extremely worrying from a fantasy perspective. And we're not expecting Drew Brees back until the in real life playoffs, and dependent on who you get in that first round, Dave, as we've flipped and flopped between NFC West and NFC East, etc. We don't know who they're going to get, and that will ultimately decide whether Brees comes back in that week or not. But his lack of targets is extremely worrying, and I was able to peddle Alvin Kamara just before the fantasy deadline, and I wanted a bigger sample size than one game, because it was Taysom Hill's first game last week. Let's not expect the guy to be slinging the football around the field, but it was a similar story. And it was against the quarterbackless Broncos that the Saints were going to win that one. There was no way that they weren't going to win that football game. But what is it? One's a, I don't know the saying, but two's a pattern. No, three's a trend or something along those lines.
We'll go with that, Dave.
Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me.
That's the one.
I'll take you making that. And I think this is going to be a play calling issue for the Saints, just in terms of getting Kamara being used. But again, as you said, the 2 games with Taysom Hill under center, the Falcons game and the Broncos game, neither of them were competitive in the slightest. So I almost want to. I know you can't keep asking for bigger sample size as you get towards your playoffs, but I want to see. Obviously, I'd love to see New Orleans go in there and just steamroll Atlanta again on Sunday. But for the sake of fantasy, you almost want to see the Falcons get up 10 points and then see how they use Kamara, because that will give you a better indicator going forward of what they do with him in those situations, and then you can make those decisions. I mean, you can't sit him. As you said, you've got to start him, but it's just a pain in the backside, isn't it?
You expect more than -2 yards over 2 weeks receiving, though, don't you?
Exactly, yeah. But again, the Broncos game, I would almost understand if you just had those -2 yards receiving in Denver, because it's cold. You're running the ball no matter what, because you just want to get in and out of there. It's not a competitive game. Don't get hurt. But again, the Falcons game, not good. I mean, yeah. And I'm invested in Kamara heavily in the leagues I'm in.
So I have him in one league. That's a team where I'm the highest scorer with a 5-6 record.
I love those leagues. These are horrible, aren't they?
Oh dear.
You know which league that is, Rob.
I do. The one that I need you to win in, isn't it?
Oh,
Is
I'm
it
that one.
All right.
Yeah, we'll talk about our own fantasy leagues another time, Dave. Don't worry. These fantasy leagues that we're not privy to. So we head over to my bust, and I'm going to cheat a little bit, and I'm just going to go the Philadelphia Eagles. So if you are a running back or a wide receiver in Philadelphia, you had a horrible night last night. So the highest scoring wide receiver, Travis Fulgham, with 3.6 fantasy points.
Well, Adil, was that enough for you to win your dynasty league? Because you needed like 16 points from Travis Fulgham and from Miles Sanders. Was that right?
Had he not tipped it down to Richard Rodgers, who was on my bench.
Wow.
Yeah, that's painful.
The worst thing is the guy that you were playing, I hold his first round pick in this dynasty draft. So I wanted you to win. I was all over it. Yeah, Fulgham and Sanders, they'll be easily get that points. No.
But yeah,
Can
just
place
terrible day for the running backs and wide receivers there in Philadelphia. So
yeah,
Sanders 6 carries, 15 yards. Boston Scott 2 for 7, and then receiving. I'm not going to go through his Steven stats because it is all disgusting. But for you, James, this is 2 weeks in a row now where Dallas Goedert has shone. 10 targets, 7 receptions, 75 yards, and a touchdown. And this was supposed to be a game where the Seahawks don't give up fantasy points to the tight ends. Both tight ends got a touchdown in this one, and they give up plenty of fantasy points to the wide receiver position. There was hardly any wide receiver points in this one. So the Philadelphia Eagles going completely against trend here against the Seattle Seahawks. And I think the scoreline was fair to the Philadelphia Eagles. It flattered them a little bit. But yeah, I'm cheating, and I'm saying all of the running backs and all of the wide receivers in Philadelphia are the busts of the week, and I am incredibly worried. Even Jalen Reagor, who has been pumped up on this show, hyped up all season, 3 receptions, 11 yards, just not good indeed. But that is week 12, and now we head into the waivers for the week. So, Rob, take it away. Do you want to go last? Because you said you got a few to choose from.
Well, I always sort of pick up the pieces, don't I? So to go for the other two first, and then I'll just feed off their scraps.
Dave, who have you got at the waiver position?
I'm going to be really original and talk about the New Orleans Saints. I can't not. When Latavius Murray on the NFL Fantasy League is rostered in under 30% of the leagues, and I've just said about how they are game planning to not use Kamara as much and just power run with Latavius Murray and Taysom Hill. You can't not pick him up. And they are playing against a couple of teams. I think they've got the Falcons next, obviously, and the Eagles. They don't give up that many points against the run. I mean, the Falcons rank 4th and the Eagles rank 7th. However, the Saints are really good at the moment. And I almost think that when it comes to fantasy, these stats don't matter because the Saints can beat you in so many ways.
Yeah.
And I think if they want to beat you on the ground, they'll go ahead and beat you on the ground. So don't be put off by, and normally I'm a slave to the rankings in terms of how they stack up against position skill players. But yeah, to me, Latavius Murray is the guy to pick up. You've got to go and get him. You just have to.
Yeah, especially with the usage, and we've just talked about it with Alvin Kamara being the boss, and with his ownership being less than 30%. Did you say?
Yeah, 28.9, I believe it is on the NFL Fantasy.
Less than 30%. Go and get him. Adil, who is your top favorite waiver pickup?
My favorite is Devontae Booker. Now with Josh Jacobs potentially out injured, and then playing the Jets, it seems like a no-brainer pickup.
Yeah, he had that game against the Broncos a couple of weeks ago, even with Josh Jacobs starting and playing, where he got those couple of touchdowns late on in the game as well, and he's looked good. So agree with that one, and I think this is particularly the season. Now we say at the start of the season, handcuff your stud running backs. Make sure you get your players like Devontae Booker, but certainly early on in the season, we didn't know who that was going to be because they've had so many different players there in Las Vegas at the running back position. But Devontae Booker it's clearly in the last few weeks become that guy, and the Josh Jacobs manager should have handcuffed him earlier. But yeah, if he's still there, go and get him, because if Josh Jacobs does miss time, he will be the guy there in Las Vegas. Even though are we a little bit worried about their play calling though and their coaching?
I think he'll be proof enough. So if Josh Jacobs starts, I think if they get ahead enough in the game, then he'll be a great play because he'll just get a lot of the touches.
Yeah.
But he's still going to get a lot of the touches if he actually doesn't play, if Josh Jacobs doesn't play.
Yeah, definitely. And I think this is going to be a theme at this stage of the season, and Tim's coming up here with some cracking fantasy advice, is to go out and look for other people's handcuffs. You don't necessarily have to handcuff your own players, and the Josh Jacobs owners will be rushing to the waiver wire now to go and get Devontae Booker. So have a look through your leagues, your Mattisons, your Bookers. I was going to say Pollard then, but when Zeke Elliott's putting up his few fantasy points, you're not really handcuffing Pollard to Zeke at this point. But Latavius Murray is another one. It's kind of a different role there. But go and just check, see if these guys are playing, because come weeks 15 and 16, you can only play a certain amount of players. So it's better to have these players that could have the bigger roles than those fringe players that might get a few touches. So yeah, go and check the waiver wire for any other handcuffs that may be sitting around in your leagues. We're going to go for my waiver pickup, and we've already talked about Will Fuller. He has been suspended for 6 games for the season, and we finally have the answer as to why he has not got injured so far this season. So for the first 3-4 weeks of the season, Will Fuller was my biggest trade away for every single week, because I said he cannot maintain this level of fitness. He will get injured, but he proved me wrong. He battled through it, and he's made it until week 12, where the league has found that he has been on performance-enhancing drugs, and he has been suspended for 6 games. Will Fuller pleads ignorance. We saw with Golden Tate at the start of the year, he was on some fertility medication that had a substance in it that he wasn't made aware. Will Fuller is pleading ignorance with it, saying that his doctor had prescribed him something that he thought was in line with. Let's not get into that. Will Fuller has been suspended for 6 games and will miss certainly the rest of the fantasy season. If Texans, let's not worry about if the Texans get to the playoffs, etc. Will Fuller will miss the rest of the fantasy season. And it's an interesting one because he is a free agent at the end of the season as well. So if he does get released if he does move on from the Texans, he will also miss his first game for his new team.
Packers.
Well, exactly. Some people are saying it's the stroke of genius from the Packers not trading for him a couple of weeks ago, because he will now end up a Green Bay Packer, and they'll just have to miss him for a game, and then it'd be good to go from there. And some people are claiming it's a brilliant business decision from Will Fuller, like just. If he's used the PEDs to stay healthy this far this season, to show what he is capable of if he stays healthy, to really ramp up his value heading into free agency, then that is a brilliant business decision from him. But he has been suspended, so he should be cut from all fantasy rosters. But the Texans wide receiver room, it's not like, oh yeah, Randall Cobb. Oh no, wait, he's injured. He is likely going on to IR. At least they've got Kenny Stills, though. Oh, wait, no. They released him just before the Will Fuller news. So they've lost Will Fuller, Randall Cobb, and Kenny Stills, all in a matter of a few weeks. And that is 142 targets so far this season, which if we divide that, say by the 11 games that we've had, we're talking like... quick maths here, David. About 12 to 13.
What do you ask David for? Do I look thick?
I was talking to myself.
Yeah. All right. That's from the Colts fans. They don't know nothing.
12.9 targets a game.
There, I said 12 to 13. Like, come on. I was proven right talking to myself. So, yeah, 12.9 targets per game have now become available in Houston. And they don't pass to the running backs. Brandon Cooks is there. He will see an uptake in his target share. But a lot of backstory for me to get to my waiver pickup here. Kiki Kuti is the guy to pick up in this offense. He's only had 9 targets himself this year, 6 receptions, but he is the guy to pick up in this offense because he will step in and become the wide receiver 2 to Brandon Cooks. But I hate now having Deshaun in my team. Trade deadlines have passed. Deshaun has been absolutely phenomenal since about week 5 of this season for your fantasy teams. The only bad game he's had was that one in Cleveland where the weather was horrendous and you didn't start him. And now I just feel like his fantasy season is pretty much over as well because without the weapons, he's not going to put up the points. And Will Fuller has been tremendous for him so far this season.
And now we know how.
Yeah, exactly. And now we know how. Okay, Rob, I hand over to you and your plethora of waiver pickups.
Not a plethora, just a deuce. J.K. Dobbins is owned in just under 50% of leagues in ESPN games. Anyway, I don't know, Dave, if you can quickly look up for NFL for me. But basically, he's got a really, really good run in. Other than this week in Pittsburgh, and obviously, I know we're talking about a Raven right now, so you have to be a little bit, but he is back. I've just got a notification from Steve before he started that he is off the COVID list because he's had his allotted time or whatever. So he will be playing tomorrow against Pittsburgh, but it is Pittsburgh. But after that, they've got the Cowboys, the Browns, Jacksonville, and New York Giants. Now, of those teams, the Cowboys, the Jags, and the Giants are giving up points to running backs left, right, and center. All 3 teams are in the top 10 of points given away to running backs. So a great little run in for J.K. Dobbins. I'm not too worried about. Is Ingram out or is he back now? I'm not quite sure.
He's back as well. I think
he's back
eligible.
as well.
Yeah.
I think he's back in spirit only, though.
He's not been. I mean, he's not been turning over any mountains this year. I know that's completely the wrong saying, but I'll go with it.
I like it.
And in week 14, J.K. Dobbins has got at the Browns, and you think, well, the Browns are pretty good against the run. But in week 1, J.K. Dobbins scored 2 touchdowns against the Browns. So he's done it before there. So a really nice run in for J.K. Dobbins in an offense where over the last 4 games, he's seen 15, 12, 5, and then 15 rushes per game. So it's starting to ramp up for him, and he's starting to look like a little good little player. So he is one that I would be owning. And I will just mention a tight end, and we can't really put the music on now, can we? Because we're live. But I'd put some music on for Dalton Schultz because, again, he's got a pretty good run in as well. We all love Dalton Schultz in this show, don't we? And he's been getting it. He's been getting it done. And I mean, not a great week last week, 5 for 24. But in the upcoming weeks, tricky one against Baltimore, but then Cincinnati and Philadelphia are both in, I believe, both in the top 10 of points given away to tight ends. A tricky one, week 15 against your very own San Francisco 49ers. But it's Dalton Schultz, so you're starting him.
Dalton squared. Indeed.
Rob, are you basically asking me to sing the Always Schultz?
No, definitely not. No, definitely not.
I didn't think you were. I just wanted to sing. So those listening back will maybe get a little snippet. If you listen past the outro, you may get a little snippet of the Always Schultz stand by my good self, just as the Alexander Mattison Easter egg that was hidden in about our week 3 podcast. So that concludes today's show, our first live stream in the books, and I think it's gone really well. There's only the one mild swear word, but as we said, we're up at 9 p.m. So I think we've done well. I think it'll be able to go straight up onto the social media platforms as well. So Rob, tell us where we can find you on Twitter.
You can find me on Twitter at FFBritBaller. And currently got quite a lot going on with the college lads. We are undertaking a massive project for the full 10 yards college. So keep your eyes peeled for that. It's all about the rookies coming, the prospects for the 2021 draft. We are going on a scouting mission, and it's really heavy, in depth, and I am absolutely loving it so far. But yeah, we're going down that rabbit hole, so we're going to be lost throughout the whole winter, stuck in tape and different reviews and whatever. So yeah, really looking forward to that. So keep your eyes peeled for that. You can go follow them at full 10 yards CFB.
Yeah, and for fantasy players, particularly those that play Dynasty, you've got your rookie drafts coming up. So it's really important that we are looking at these guys that are coming into the draft and the best possible landing spots for them and stuff like that. And this is the first year that I've started to watch college football, and you start to pick up people's names, but it's really useful to have a tool such as this. So yeah, definitely go check it out.
This is what we're doing. We're literally, I've been designing these sort of I don't know, these profiles for the players coming through. They're all sort of coloured and whatnot in their own sort of team colours from college, and it's got breakdowns of strengths and weaknesses and a bit of a bio about them and all their stats and facts and all sorts. And it's a good little, if you're unsure who this 5th or 6th round running back is, it's going to be something for you to click on, or if we go down the guide route, but we've got to talk to Tim about that first. It could be available. It's going to be available at your fingertips somehow, to go, who is this guy that we've just drafted in the 5th round? Oh, is him. He had a really good college career at X college. You know, it's going to be something that it's going to be easily accessible. So I'm really looking forward to that sort of. I'm doing the running backs, and I'm absolutely loving it. And yeah, but through all of us, there's 5 of us doing it, and we're going to break down every single position group. So it's going to be fun.
Brilliant. Keep your hashtag eyes peeled for that. Dave, where can we find you on the old Twitter sphere?
I am at Davey Remix. That's DAVIE Remix. And I wish I was spending my winter being half as productive as Rob. But I'll just be hibernated with no doubt craft beer and a big tube of Pringles between shows.
Sounds perfect. That sounds absolutely perfect. Like,
I would say come on round, but
COVID.
Out.
Yeah. But the offer's there. Thanks. I'll
spirit.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And Adil, where can we find you?
I can be found at Dillytoon, DILLYTOON.
Wonderful stuff. And I've been David, as you can see on screen, or for those listening, you can find me on Twitter at Dav_F10Y. Make sure you're following us on Twitter at F10Y Fantasy. Thank you very much for listening, and we will see you on Friday.
You've been listening to the Full 10 Yards Fantasy Podcast. You can find us on Twitter at F10Y Fantasy and over on our website, www.full10yards.com, where we cater to all of your American football needs, from NFL general, fantasy football, college football, and even Britball. Thanks for listening, and remember, folks, keep those eyes peeled. We're still live.
Always Schultz, I guess.